Welcome to another 4-H Minecraft Basics video. In this video we're going to take a look at redstone. Deep down underground you're going to find ore that looks like this. This is redstone ore, which when you touch it starts to glow. Now if you break this with a tool that is iron or better, you'll end up getting several pieces of redstone dust, which looks like this, or is what I have in my hand right now. Now redstone dust is used to transmit both power, and because it transmits power you can use it to transmit a signal as well. And the way that you do that is you can put it on the ground just like this, and that creates a redstone wire that now will transmit a signal across the ground. So there are several items in Minecraft that will generate a signal, and here I've got 3. These blocks that are in the walls are called redstone lamps, and it's a way of taking a glowstone block and turning it into a lamp that can be turned on and off. But in front of it I've got a redstone torch, which is crafted exactly the same way you'd create a normal torch, just by putting a piece of redstone in place of coal. And it generates a continuous redstone signal, and you can see that the wire here is lit up and that the block is lit up. Here I've got a lever, which when I switch it back and forth allows me to change the signal from on to off, and that turns the lamp on and off. And here on this gold block, and we'll take a look behind it, I've got a piece of redstone dust on the ground there, so that creates the wire. I've got a button. Now you'll see that the button automatically pops back out, and when the button pops back out, the signal stops. When you're creating redstone wire, one of the most important things to remember is that the redstone signal fades out over time, so there's a loss in power over time. And here you can see that I've got this lever powering this redstone wire, and after 15 blocks, this is the 15th block right here, you can see that the redstone signal is no longer being transmitted. So on the 15th block, if I put a lamp, it will turn on. If I add a piece of wire, this will no longer turn on, because the redstone signal stopped at this block right here. And we'll get into how to repeat the signal so that you can continue it on for longer distances. So since I've been playing with these redstone lamps, let's take a look at the various blocks that actually can be impacted by having a signal or power go to it. So the first one obviously is the redstone lamp, which we've already taken a look at, which when I flip the switch turns on and off. Here I've got a note block, and every time it receives a signal it will transmit its note. Here I've got a door. It's a very standard door. And one thing to note is that there's also an iron door that you can make in Minecraft, and if you've ever tried making it without a switch next to it, you'll notice that you can't open or close an iron door with your hand. That's because an iron door is designed to work only with a redstone signal, whereas the wooden door can work with your hand or also with the any kind of redstone signal. Here I've got a piston, which when it receives a signal extends. Here I've got a dispenser, which just happens to be shooting out TNT blocks, and every time it receives a signal it will shoot out a redstone block. Here I've got gold rail or gold track, which when it receives a signal will turn on, which will boost any cart that's traveling in either direction and will boost the cart in that same direction. Now, since I received it, let's take a look at TNT. TNT is one of the blocks that requires a redstone signal, so it requires a power signal in order to actually activate. So here I've got a line of redstone. It is 15 redstone dust long, and when I activate it you'll see that the TNT is activated and then blows up. Which is also why, if you're not aware of it, when you place a redstone block or a block of TNT, in order to activate it, you normally have to put down a redstone torch next to it, because the redstone torch generates the signal. But you can also do that with any of the other blocks. You could do that with a switch, or you could do that with a lever. So let's take a look at how you would place redstone and how the redstone torches work. So a little bit of advanced topics here. Normally, when redstone wire hits a block, what happens is the redstone wire will power that block. So for example, if I put a lamp on that block or next to that block, what happens is the redstone signal and power is going into this block, and then this block will power up all of the standard blocks that are next to it. However, what it won't do is it will not pass the signal on to redstone wire that's on the other side of the block. But you can place redstone on top of the block, and you'll see that then the redstone travels up and back down. And so that's one way to get redstone moving either up or down. So for example, I could place redstone there, and that's a way to send redstone signal down. Or I could also place a little ladder and then place redstone like that, and that's a way to get redstone moving up. Another feature, though, is that redstone torches will actually turn on or off based on the signal that they themselves are receiving. So in this case right here, and redstone torches are a lot like regular torches, so I can place them just like a regular torch on almost any surface. And in this case, this redstone torch is hanging on the side of this block, and it is powering this lamp that's on top. But if I create a signal, so this this lever is creating a signal that's going into this block, so this block is sending power out to this torch, meaning that this lever now connected to this torch. So as soon as the lever connected to the torch, it turned off the redstone torch. So as another example, I did not want to do that, I need another lever. There we go. As another example, I can place a redstone torch on top of this block. So right now it's on, because this torch is off. So this torch is not powering this lamp, which means that this lamp is not giving power to this torch. But if I flip this switch, you'll notice that these two changed, because now this redstone torch is able to turn on, which powers this lamp, and since this lamp is powering this torch then turns off. So that's, getting back to our original example of wiring, that's how we can create what's called a repeater. So here I've got a section of redstone cable, and you'll notice that the middle section here is powered on. But if I flip this switch, this section turns on, which powers this block. That then turns this torch off, which turns this section off, which means that this block is no longer powered, so this torch turns on, and then this section is powered. And so the reason this is called a repeater is that from this torch, I now have another 15 blocks that I could create a signal moving out. So if I were to create a lever, move down 15 blocks, and then create this little device, it would repeat the signal so that the signal at the beginning and at the end is the same. What happens here in the middle is not that important. It's only being used in order to repeat the signal. One of the cool things that was added relatively recently in the game is this thing called a redstone repeater. So this entire block setup right here with the block, the torch, and then another torch has been recreated by Mojang in this single block, and it's called a redstone repeater. So the same thing happens in one block. When I click this on, the redstone signal travels down and powers the repeater. The repeater then repeats the signal, and you'll see that the signal strength of this one is stronger than this one, so it repeats the strength. So now I've got another 15 blocks that I can travel, and you could use that. You could use multiple repeaters to basically send your signal as far as you want to go. Let me turn that back off. The other thing that the repeater does, and this was a trick that a lot of people used to do with these repeater blocks, is by creating multiple, you could create a delay in your circuit. So that was built into the repeater. So if I right-click on a repeater once it's placed, you'll notice that the second torch kind of moves backwards. So for each click that the torch moves backwards, there's a delay introduced. So let's go ahead and introduce the largest delay possible. And you'll notice now when I click this torch, when I flip this torch, it will send a signal to the repeater, and then the repeater will take a little while before it puts a signal into the second wire. Let's do that, and you'll see there was a slight delay. And we do that again, and there's a slight delay. Now you can make that more pronounced by simply adding more repeaters. So let's do that real quick. 2, 3, 4, and let's set all of these to the maximum delay. Okay, and now I'm going to click, and you'll see that the signal slowly passes down the repeaters and then gets into the final line. So that's a way that you can use repeaters to send a signal that's delayed from the input. The other thing that's nice about repeaters is that repeaters don't connect to the wiring that's next to it. So for example, if I put more wiring here, you'll notice that the wiring actually connects, meaning that this signal that's traveling here, I can't have another signal coming the other way on a block right next to it. So with redstone repeaters, though, one of the things that I can do is I can actually send a signal back, and what I will do is I'll put a lamp right here. So here's my lamp. Of course, right now everything's powered up. Let me turn it back off and add some delay. I'm going to power this block. You'll see that the signal travels down the initial repeaters, and then it comes back the other repeaters. Because a repeater sends its signal, receives the signal in the back, and then out the front, and it does not interact with the sides. So it's a neat way to clean up your circuits, because you can use the repeaters right next to each other, which you cannot do with wiring. The other neat thing about the repeater is that with a normal block, so if I take a redstone signal like this torch and it's sending the power through, it will power this block right here. But as we saw earlier, it will not send power to wiring that's behind the block. However, a redstone repeater, if you place a redstone repeater directly in front of this block, the redstone repeater will push the signal into this block the same as it did with the wire, so now I can power things with this block. But the redstone repeater will also power the block directly opposite, so it will power the redstone wiring that's on the other side over here. So that's a way, if for example I had a wall here, that's a way to make it seem like there's an invisible source on the other side that is sending power through the wall, which you could not do with just a regular redstone wiring. And let's turn it to daytime again. So those are the basics of redstone. And because of that, you can use these things like transistors and like capacitors, and you can use them as the basic building blocks for all kinds of circuits. As one last thing, let's take a quick look at an advanced type of circuit, and this is called a toggle circuit, or a toggle latch. And the basic idea is that I have this redstone lamp here at the end, and the redstone lamp I want to turn on and off based on this button. But as we saw earlier, if I do this again, I'll go ahead and place a block, and let me get a button here, and another gold block. So let's do it with a gold block. Oops. Place that button. And let's actually put a little bit of distance here. So if I push this button, you'll see the light turns off, but then because the button pops back out, the light turns back off. So it's not like a light switch. However, this device right here is basically what's called a toggle latch. And so there's a number of pieces in between, and in this case we're using sticky pistons to move blocks, because what happens is the redstone torch right now has air above it, and so it's not powering anything. There's no signal to push into anything. So if I push this button now, the pistons move. One of the side effects of the piston here is that it moved this block out of the way, or over this torch. So now this torch, which is always on, is pushing power into this block, which is powering this dust and turn the light on. If I push it again, this mechanism, so basically this mechanism right here, these three blocks, which is a repeater, there's a piston underneath, and another repeater, all exist just to power this piston and to generate a kind of a block defect, which makes the piston not retrieve the block even though it's sticky. And this right here is the entire latch. So basically when this torch powers this block, as it moves over the top, that's how it turns on and off. As you can see, I'll push the button again, and my lamp is on. I'll push the button again, and it will stay on now forever until I push the button again, and now it turns off. So there you can see this is a fairly simple little circuit that can be used to create all kinds of things. And if you're adventurous, you can go out and take a look and search for things like Minecraft computer, and you'll see that people have actually used redstone and these simple types of circuits to recreate simple processors, video displays, all kinds of nifty things, just using redstone, redstone torches, pistons, and redstone repeaters, which is pretty impressive.